Good afternoon. Today we're going to talk about job notifications, workflow, and compliance. A few housekeeping items. This will be recorded in a Zoom format. We will also provide any published updates to the user manual, and we will have an opportunity for questions at the end of the session. In this session, we are going to talk about two proven job management automated features that can assist in both providing compliance and accountability to your teams. We will first talk about proven job management's job notifications, which is more of a basic compliance tool that is mostly generated upon dates being entered within your database. We will then transition and talk about a more robust compliance tool, which is workflow, where you can set up starting and ending triggers to help ensure items such as dates, notes, and etc. are getting entered properly and timely within your database. Let's first discuss job notifications. Prior to us creating a job notification together, let's talk about what syncs and what doesn't sync for our clients that also use PSA Desktop. PSA Desktop activities sync to proven job management job notifications, but any revisions or edits to those activities will need to be updated within the PSA Desktop Job Cost Setup screen. Any job notifications created here in PJM will not sync to PSA Desktop. Furthermore, activities only get triggered from the system where the date is entered. Now that we have discussed the sync, on my screen here, you can see that I already have 4 job notifications set up. You can see the subject of the job notification, the specific job type, date type, and location. If you have the proper role securities in place for your user account, you will have the ability to edit and or delete job notifications. Let's click on the blue Create button. The first item to select is what job type you want this notification generated upon. If this specific notification is applicable for multiple job types and multiple locations, please be aware that you will need to create a job notification per job type and per location. In this example, I'm going to select the job type reconstruction. In order for this job notification to be triggered, the job type of reconstruction must be selected at the time of job creation. Now let's select our date type, which also must be entered on the Dates tab of the specific job in order for the job notification to be triggered as well. In this example, I'm going to select the received date. Next, select your location if you have multiple locations. The area for job contacts is allowing you to set up job notification recipients of individuals that get entered as a relationship on the specific job. The briefcase icon is allowing you to send a job notification to a company, such as a customer, vendor, adjuster, or referrer. The silhouette icon is allowing you to send a job notification to an employee, such as a project manager, estimator, or a PMA. You can choose one option or the other. You cannot select both icons. In this example, we are going to select Project Manager Assistant. Next, we have the employee area. This will allow you to send a job notification to a named individual, and they do not have to be listed as a relationship. In this example, we are going to select Taylor A. Carmichael because she is my project manager, and I want her and the PMA to both be aware that a new job has been received and that the customer needs to be contacted. The interval is allowing me to enter in the time frame of when I want the notification to be systematically generated to the above contact and employee. Depending on the specific scenario, you might want the interval to be set for a couple of hours. Or in this case, I want my team to be notified immediately of the date received being populated on a job. So I'm going to select an interval of 0 hours and then select Add. At the bottom of our screen is where we can enter in the subject and body of text that we want our contact and employee to receive. You can manually enter this information, or you can opt to use a log note template. I highly recommend the usage of log note templates because those templates can be predefined and also have specific mail merge coding designed to pull in job data that gets entered into the job, such as info, dates, and relationships. In this example, we are going to use the log note template, new job received, contact customer, and then select apply. You will notice in the body area, I have several coded fields. When this job notification is generated based upon the selected job type and date type, the contact and employee defined above will receive this notification to their email account. This will include job information, such as loss information, customer information, and also referral. We will now click Save. Now you can see we have a new job notification created. It says new job received, contact customer. If you decide that you do not want this job notification, you can simply click delete and remove the job notification. Now that you have learned about automated job notifications, let's transition and discuss the more robust compliance feature of workflow. Please navigate to Settings, Company Settings, Jobs, and Edit Workflow Setup. Within this database, I have a total of 28 workflows already created, which are automatically generated based on very specific information entered into the system. Depending on your role securities, you have the ability to edit, delete, create, and duplicate workflows. Each column is able to be filtered. I'm going to filter my specific job type to ZZZ emergency. Once filtered, you can see the workflows that I have created for the life of this specific job type, all the way from received to paid, and the corresponding timeframes based on the expectations of when this information needs to be entered within the system. The sequence on the far left column is a numerical value that is intended to simply help you keep your specific workflows organized. In the future, sequences will become important because you will not be able to complete sequence 2 until sequence 1 has been completed. Now let's review the setup of sequence 1 so you can see how to build these within your own database. Click Edit on the right, and this will open the Workflow Edit mode. We will first take a look at the top half and define our criteria. This information on the top is crucial because what I enter in the criteria must be true or existing at the job level if I expect my defined starting trigger to trigger. The sequence number is mainly used for workflow organization purposes on what must occur first. This must be a numerical value, as no alpha characters can be entered within this field. Select the specific job type in which you want to base this workflow on. If the workflow is applicable to all job types and not just a singular job type, choose the Select All option. You have the ability to granularly define the workflow based upon a job subtype. If you choose to leave this field blank, it will reflect for all job subtypes. The parent field gives you the ability of defining a workflow based upon either insurance company or third-party administrator, as long as the relationship is defined at the job level and given the parent label, you can set up workflows specifically to remain in compliance with third-party administration strict guidelines. If left blank, the workflow will be applicable to all parent options selected on the specific job type. If you have multiple locations, you can choose the applicable location from the drop-down menu or select all. The description field is essentially defining the title of the specific workflow that you are creating. A strong description can come in handy later and be beneficial if you are searching through the control center, which we will talk more about here in a little bit. The job contact and employee fields both cannot be used in conjunction with one another. You must choose one or the other. You will notice that one side will be grayed out depending on which side you choose. The job contact field is allowing you to define a company and employee type to receive the notification defined below. Because this is in the criteria section, the company or employee type must exist on the relationships tab of the job if I want the starting trigger to generate. For example, if I define an employee type of project manager, if I do not list the project manager within the relationships tab of the specific job, then this workflow will not trigger or activate because that relationship needs to exist. On the employee section, I can choose a named individual. This person does not need to be listed as a relationship on the relationships tab. Then you have the ability to define a particular building type. For example, if you want to generate a workflow only on residential or commercial, you can define that, or select all to encompass all building types. Now let's take a look at the left side to define my starting trigger. Triggers can be generated based upon 4 different criteria options: job date, job attachments, job info, and job note. Job date is a widely popular choice amongst our clients, but you also have the ability to generate workflows based upon certain images or documents being uploaded into the job, certain data being entered on the job info tab, and certain log topics being utilized. In this example, we have defined our starting trigger to be job date driven, and then we have selected the received date from the drop-down options. You have the ability to define a log note topic. This specific topic will be automatically utilized if you have the log note checkbox selected at the bottom of your starting trigger. Once the trigger is activated, an automated log note will be entered into the Notes tab of the specific job. This is where you will see the log note topic. The workflow title will be your note subject and the body of the note as defined here. You can choose to use a log note template to build the body of the note, or you can simply type in a message to your team on the expectations of the starting trigger. When I scroll down in the note body, you can see that I have entered a specific mail merge codes that will import or fill from the information entered into the specific job. This job information will be helpful to the individual that receives the automated notification in their email. You do have the ability to send the job contact or employee defined above a merged document. The merged document must already exist within your company settings in order to be selectable on this list. We have notification selected, which is telling the system once this specific workflow is triggered when the received date is entered, the employee defined will receive an email notified with my starting trigger details. Now let's define our ending trigger to satisfy our starting trigger. In this example, my ending trigger is the contacted date. The note defined is to serve as a reminder for the employee that the trigger needs to be satisfied. This note will be sent to the employee listed above because I have notification selected and a due and warning selected. I have defined the due time frame for 30 minutes. This is telling the system that once the received date has been entered, the employee has 30 minutes to make contact with the customer and enter the contacted date on the Dates tab of the specific job. You also have the ability to define a warning. In this example, our employee will receive a notification at 15 minutes that positive contact has not been made yet with the customer. This is serving as a warning or reminder that the customer needs to be contacted. This can be extremely beneficial, especially when attempting to remain in compliance with third-party administration guidelines. As you know, within the restoration industry, situations will arise, and you are not always going to satisfy your due time frames that you have set forth. In this example, maybe I attempted to contact the customer, but they didn't answer their phone until minute 45. That is where the exception criteria comes into play. You can define the exception criteria as a log note, select the topic, and then place a check mark next to the log note. This is telling the system, when I attempted to add a contacted date at 45 minutes, the system will recognize that the workflow is past due and will ask me to enter in a log note as to why I didn't contact the customer within 30 minutes. This will help hold compliance and accountability for your employees to meet timeframes and also to keep your notes updated with any special circumstances. At the bottom, you have the ability to add additional reminders. If applicable, you can send a reminder to the employee or their supervisor at minute 35, alerting them that the customer has not yet been contacted and that this needs to be completed. Once the workflow has been set up, please make sure you click Save. Now let's transition into a job that has several workflows that have automatically triggered based upon being entered into the system. When you click the Workflow tab, you will see all workflows that have been triggered based upon what you set up in your company settings and the current status of each workflow. If a workflow is past due on this screen, you can satisfy the workflow by either entering the blue hyperlink in the action column and entering your exception criteria, or by entering in the applicable date on the Dates tab, in which you will then have to enter the exception criteria from there as well. This view is great to view workflow status at the job level. But what about workflow status at an overall database level for all triggered workflows? To view that information, let's navigate to the Control Center. From your Jobs menu, select the Control Center, and then select Workflow tab. You will see 4 colorful buttons across the top defining the workflow status. These buttons also show how many workflows currently fall into that specific status. By clicking on each button, you can define a list of workflows that are applicable to the status that you have selected. I can see newly generated workflows, workflows in a warning status, workflows that are past due, and workflows that have been completed. If I want to look at a workflow for a specific employee or employee type, I can click on the Show Criteria and enter in the date range I want to search by, and then enter the employee's name. Once the filter is applied, workflows applicable to that employee will populate down below in the list view. We are going to search for workflows created this week for Taylor Carmichael. It shows that there is one workflow and that it is past due. For past due workflows, I can click on the blue hyperlink in the action column to satisfy the workflow and enter in the exception criteria. The date entered within the Control Center will pre-fill the corresponding date on the Dates tab of the job itself. If I want to navigate directly to the specific job, I can click on the status within the status column, and that will navigate me to the job's workflow tab itself. Each column across the top is able to be filtered if you're searching for a specific sequence or description. Currently, workflows do have to be satisfied in sequence of what is defined within your company's settings. Sequence 2 will not trigger until sequence 1 has been satisfied. In the future, our development team is working on a solution to stop or pause a specific workflow sequence if there is a very special circumstance that requires a workflow to be stopped, thus allowing you to move onto a succeeding sequence before the first one has been completed. Again, that does not exist today, but it is something our development team is actively working on. Now that we have reviewed job notifications and workflow, we will now open the floor for any questions.